There are 4 levels of AI mastery, and 95% of entrepreneurs are stuck at level 1. So, over the next 30 minutes, you're going to learn exactly what level you're at, detailed steps that you can take to get to the next level, and then at the end, I'm going to go over a full roadmap that you can follow to get to at least level 3 within 90 days, even if you're starting from scratch. Now, it's really important to master one level at a time, so we're going to dive in and talk about the 4 levels of AI mastery. Now, before we truly dive in, I want to credit this framework to a friend of mine, someone that I've been following for a little bit of time by the name of Boring Marketer. Now, he's a great follow over on X and over on YouTube. And I actually took his video going over these 4 levels, which I'm going to link in the description if you're watching on YouTube, or in the show notes if you're listening on podcast. He's got a great breakdown of the 4 levels through his eyes. And really, I'm taking that framework and diving deeper into it myself and adding my own spin on it. So check out that video. It's a great watch. And that's what this framework is based off of, the framework from the Boring Marketer. Now, we're going to talk about why this matters first and foremost. And this matters because the gap between level 1 and level 3, that's your competitive advantage. Like I said in the intro, 95% of entrepreneurs are stuck at level 1. And if we're talking about the general population at large, 99% of people are stuck at level 1, or they're not even at level 1, because most people think that AI expertise is knowing how to talk to ChatGPT or knowing how to use ChatGPT to do data analysis or do spreadsheet work, most of the common use cases that you probably heard of. But there's so much more to it than that, especially when you start to unlock levels 2, level 3, and then all the way up to level 4. And the key takeaway here, if you take away nothing else from this episode, is that AI expertise can be built in 90 days or less. It doesn't take years. I am not an expert at this stuff. I'm not a master at this stuff. I've just spent more time than most people tinkering with it, experimenting with it every day. Just like any other skill, if you're consistent and you just learn more about it every day, you're going to be in the top 1%. So let's jump right into level 1. And level 1 is all about prompting, learning how to effectively prompt chatbots like ChatGPT, like Claude, like Google Gemini, like Grok. There are a bunch of chatbots out there that generally serve the same purpose. Now, of course, ChatGPT is the most common one by far. To the majority of the normal population, when they think AI, they think ChatGPT. They don't know that AI exists outside of ChatGPT. So when we're talking about chatbots here, I'm just going to use ChatGPT because that's the one that most people are familiar with. So I personally like to use Claude the most. Recently, as of the recording of this video, we're in early December 2025, Gemini 3.0. Since the launch of Gemini 3.0, it's pretty widely considered to be the best chatbot at the moment, right? But OpenAI is actually set to release ChatGPT 5.2 potentially today. But at the very latest, it will be released this week, which analysts are saying might even be better than Gemini. So these models are changing by the day, by the week. And really, it just comes down to picking the one that you like most and sticking with it and learning it really well. Now, when it comes to mastering level 1, what does basic competency look like? Basic competency at level 1, when you're learning how to effectively prompt, involves giving the chatbot a role. So I know when I first started using ChatGPT, I would just say, hey, write me a paper or write me a paragraph or analyze this spreadsheet. But while that can be effective, what's way more effective is when you give it a specific role and then you assign it a task. So instead of saying, hey, write me this LinkedIn post, you'd give it a role and say, hey, you are an expert LinkedIn copywriter who specializes in writing thought-provoking, scroll-stopping posts, for example. So when you give it a role like that, it's going to be so much more effective when it comes time to perform the task, which leads into the second part of competency, which is defining the specific task. So when it comes to working with these chatbots, clarity is key. And I know, at least when it comes to my initial workings with these chatbots, I tended to repeat myself and I wasn't very clear with my instructions. So if the first thing I do is assign it a role, the second thing I do is to define the specific task that I want it to do. So an example of that might be, hey, your role is that you are a world-class LinkedIn copywriting expert who specializes in writing scroll-stopping posts. Your task is to write a 100-word or less post on this topic. Please write it now. Okay, so that's a really good way where you defined you gave it a role, and then you defined a specific task for it to perform. And then lastly, you want to specify your output format. So if we've given it a role and we've given it a specific task, the last thing we want to do is we want to specify the exact output, the exact format that we want to receive the output in. So do we want that to be a 100-word completed post? Do we want the output to be in bullet point format? Do we want a rough draft? So these are things that we've got to specify so that it can give us the best output and give us exactly what we're looking for. So if we give it a role, say you're a LinkedIn copywriter, we give it a task, write a post on this exact topic, and then we give it an output format, make the post 100 words or less with a strong call to action at the end, then that's an example of a really good prompt. You gave it a role, you gave it a task, and you specified the output format. So when it comes to mastering level 1, mastery of level 1 looks like you have a consistent prompt template that you reuse. And it can be as simple as what I just explained. So that template can just be role, and then you give it the role, task, and you give it the task, output format, and then you give it the output format. That's exactly what I use. And it's really simple and really straightforward. So if you just reuse that 3-step template, that pretty much puts you in mastery at level 1 and automatically puts you ahead of 95% of people when it comes to using AI or when it comes to mastering these chatbots specifically. Now, another way that mastery takes shape at level 1 is you default to using AI first instead of Google. So that's one of the ways that really got me deep into the AI world, is that I had to train myself to, when I wanted to search for a problem or when I wanted to answer a question, instead of just going to Google like we're all used to doing, train yourself to go to ChatGPT first and ask your question there. Because not only will it give you the answer, you can then converse with it to elaborate on that answer and potentially get even more insight than you were originally trying to get in the first place. And then the last form of mastery at level 1 is you're able to troubleshoot the answers that you're getting by refining your prompts instead of giving up and just going back to Google. So I know when it comes to my work with ChatGPT, and I'm sure a lot of you listening to this are in the same boat, how many times do we give it a prompt and then it gives us an output and the output is not what we're looking for, or it doesn't answer the exact question that we asked? So we just give up and we just decide to Google the question instead. But you really know that you're starting to master level 1 when you can, instead of just giving up and going to Google, you go in and you tweak that prompt, or you give it additional instructions, or you help it clarify the output that you were looking for. Once you can effectively clarify and troubleshoot your prompts with ChatGPT, that's when you know you've mastered level 1. Now, you know you're ready to level up to level 2 when you've been using AI daily for at least a couple of weeks. You've started to integrate it into your daily routine. You have at least 3 to 5 saved prompts that you regularly reuse. And then you start to ask yourself, well, what repetitive tasks am I doing on a regular basis that AI could handle for me? Which leads us perfectly into level 2. Now, level 2 is focused on workflow automation. Now, what is workflow automation? Workflow automation is using simple no-code tools like Zapier, like Make.com, or like N8N to automate routine tasks. Okay, so a great example of this is drafting, let's say, replies to common emails. So let's say you've got an email that comes into your inbox and it's the same type of email. Maybe it's a customer service email that you get on a regular basis. So maybe you get the same type of customer service email on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. You can set up an automation in something like Zapier that every time you receive that exact email, it will automatically send a templated response. So that's a very basic example of workflow automation specific to email. Now, basic competency at level 2 looks like when you simply connect 2 apps together. So another basic example would be, okay, let's say you're using a CRM and you've got a form that people fill out on your website when they're interested in booking a call with you or working with you. So you could set up an automation that connects those 2 tools together, connects that form on your website to your CRM, so that as soon as somebody submits a new lead to your form, it automatically adds that lead to your CRM, right? It's just a simple two-step automation. This thing happens first, which is a trigger, and then the next step is it gets added to the CRM. Very simple two-step process. So basic competency at this level is when you understand triggers and the corresponding actions. So when we're talking about workflow automation, any workflow automation process is going to start with a trigger. What is going to trigger this process to happen? That's what you always want to be thinking through that lens when you're going to automate a workflow, right? And one that I built actually just 2 or 3 days ago was an automation that anytime I'm on a call with another person, whether it's a Google Meet or whether it's a Zoom, I use an AI note-taking tool called Fathom. And so I set up an automation in Zapier where the trigger is that anytime a new call transcript is generated in Fathom, Zapier feeds that call transcript into ChatGPT to analyze the full conversation. And then the output is it puts into a Google Sheet any content ideas that came from that call. So that's a 3-step automation, right? The trigger is new transcript is generated in Fathom. Step 2 is ChatGPT analyzes that transcript to find good content ideas. And then step 3, which is the final output, is it puts those ideas into a Google Sheet. So that's a very simple 3-step automation that up until that point I was doing manually. If I wanted to find some ideas for content, or if I'm looking for a post idea or even a podcast episode idea like this one, a lot of times I was going into my previous calls with my team or with clients or with other people in my ecosystem, and I was taking that transcript, manually feeding it into ChatGPT and having it generate ideas. But now with level 2 competency, workflow automation, tools like Zapier, you can set that up to happen automatically. So the last part of basic competency of level 2 is when you can build simple 2 or 3-step workflows. And what I love about Zapier in particular is that it's completely free for any 2-step workflows. So once you start getting more than 2 steps, like the one that I just mentioned, that goes from Fathom to ChatGPT to Google Sheets, that's a 3-step automation. So you have to have a paid account to do any automations that are more than 2 steps. But if you're just doing a 2-step automation, like the example that I mentioned earlier, let's say you get a new lead and then it automatically adds it to the CRM, those types are going to be free for life. So Zapier is a very powerful tool, and Make.com is another competitor of Zapier that works just as well. Now, mastery of level 2 looks like when you start leading with an automation mindset, when you start looking at the tasks that you're doing in your business on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, and you say to yourself, you're like, well, hey, I'm doing this task. I'm doing it the same way every time. It needs to get done, but it doesn't necessarily need to be done by me. So instead of thinking about, well, can I delegate this to an employee or can I delegate this to a virtual assistant? You want to lead with the thought process of, well, can I just automate this with the workflow automation tool? That's when you know that you're getting towards mastery of level 2. Now, the beauty of level 2 is that you can actually take your mastery of level 1 and use that to build your mastery of level 2. Now, what I mean by that is you can use ChatGPT to help you build workflow automations. So the one that I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the automation where it takes a Fathom transcript, feeds it into ChatGPT, and then puts content ideas into a Google Sheet. Yes, I built that Zapier automation myself, but I didn't just build it from scratch. I actually went into ChatGPT and said, hey, this is the outcome that I'm trying to create. Please give me the step-by-step blueprint to build this in Zapier. And ChatGPT literally laid out the step-by-step of, okay, first you go into Zapier. Then you choose a Fathom node. Then you connect it to a ChatGPT node, so on and so forth. So again, you can take that mastery of level 1, knowing how to prompt these chatbots, and use that knowledge to then help you master level 2 and essentially be your advisor and your coach when it comes to building these workflow automations yourself. So a couple of additional examples of how workflow automation is incredibly powerful and applies to every business under the sun. These are a couple of actual paid automations that I've created and sold to people that I know. So the first one was, this is a more advanced one, but it was built on a workflow automation platform called Make.com, was a speed to lead AI agent. So a friend of mine owns a wedding event space. So they own different venues that people will rent out to have weddings. And the problem that he was facing is that his main salesperson was doing tours all day. She was showing people the spaces and trying to close those deals. So when new leads came in on their website of people who were interested in hearing more about their spaces, sometimes she wasn't able to respond to those leads for 5, 6, 8 hours because she's hosting tours all day. So naturally, some of those leads were falling through the cracks, or some of those leads were going to competitors because my friend couldn't respond quickly enough. So inside Make.com, we built a very simple AI agent that triggers anytime somebody fills out the form on their website. The AI agent sends that lead a text message and says, "Hey, I'm the Lodge Weddings AI agent. I can answer any questions you have about the space. If you want to book a call, here's the link. Or if you want to book a tour, here's the link to book a tour." So if people had questions about the space, or if they had questions about what they'd be getting if they chose to book there, the agent was trained on all of my friends' frequently asked questions. So if somebody said, "Well, hey, how many people can your space fit?" the agent could respond instantly and say, "Oh, well, we can fit 150 people," right? Or if somebody said, "Well, hey, what sort of alcohol packages do you offer?" Again, the agent is trained on that information and can respond to those people instantly. So instead of what was previously a 6-hour response time, we cut that down to 60 seconds, and now they're closing a lot more of those leads as a result. So that's an example of a speed to lead automation. That was a simple workflow automation built inside of Make.com. Now, the second example was for a different client that has a project manager on staff. Now, this project manager, they pay about $70K per year, and this project manager spends about 30 minutes per customer creating a new Asana project. Asana is a project management tool. So anytime they get a new client, the project manager has to go into Asana, create a new template, assign individual tasks to vendors, and even more. So for every new customer, it takes the project manager about 30 minutes to do this Asana task. Currently, they're onboarding 5 new customers per week, which means that it's taking 10 hours per month of this project manager's time to do what is basically admin work. This is work that is not valuable, but it must be done. So we built a very simple workflow automation solution inside Zapier that anytime a new customer is onboarded, Zapier automatically generates an Asana template that's pre-filled with the customer information as soon as they sign that contract. So we took what was 30 minutes of manual work per customer for the project manager and narrowed it down to literally 0 minutes. And the beauty of workflow automations like this is they scale with your business. So if they did not implement this automation, as this business grew, the project manager's workload in just doing this one task would go from 10 hours per month to 12 hours to 15 hours to 20 plus hours per month if the company were to double. But with this automation in place, it scales infinitely and takes 0 additional minutes of her time. So that's the beauty of some of these workflow automations, is that as the business scales, the time savings scale proportionally to, the work being done, which is a fantastic way to run your business. So when it comes time to level up past level 2 into level 3, which is really where things get fun, if you've built at least 3 or more workflow automations in a tool like Zapier or like Make.com, that's when you're ready to start thinking along the lines of level 3, right? And if you start thinking to yourself, well, hey, Zapier is great, or hey, this tool is great, but I wish it did XYZ differently, that's a prime candidate for a level 3 task, which we'll get into here in a second. And then lastly, you're ready to level up when you're getting frustrated by the limitations of the existing apps that you have access to. So if you're dealing with an off-the-shelf tool where you're just like, hey, this thing's great for 90% of what I need it to do, but if it just did that last 10%, then it would unlock a whole new level of productivity for me and my business. If you ever see yourself thinking along those lines, that's when you know it's time to move to level 3. So we'll dive into level 3 now, and level 3 is vibe coding. So if any of you guys are familiar with the AI space, you probably heard that term before. Vibe coding. What is vibe coding? So I define vibe coding as using AI coding assistants, things like Claude Code or some of these off-the-shelf tools like Replit, or you may have heard of Lovable or Bolt, for example. So you use those tools to build lightweight custom tools for your business. All right, now some of you guys might hear the term vibe coding and you might hear the word coding and start to freak out because you're like, oh, well, I'm not technical. I don't know how to code. I'm not a developer. And listen, I will be the first to tell you that I am the least talented developer in history. Like, I quite literally failed computer science 1 my freshman year of college because I can't code anything. I'm physically incapable of coding or doing any sort of development work. So if I can figure this stuff out with just a little bit of practice, I promise you, no matter how technically challenged you are, this is way more accessible than you probably realize. Because the beauty of vibe coding as a practice is you don't need to know how to code. You just need to know how to talk to the coding AI and tell it what you need it to do. So the reason vibe coding is level 3 is because it takes the principles from level 1, knowing how to prompt, level 2, the mindset around workflow automation, and you're basically combining those 2 levels into being able to code custom tools using natural language. So basic competency of level 3 is when you can describe what you want in plain English. So remember what I said about not needing to know how to code? You don't, because you can just describe what you need in plain English, just like you're talking to ChatGPT, just like you're back at level 1. And the way that I like to vibe code is I like to provide examples of what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. So right now, I'm actually using Claude Code to build a landing page for my podcast. And what I did is I actually went out and found 5 or 6 different podcast landing pages that I like, that I think look good. And I just pasted those into Claude Code and I said, hey, here are some examples. I want you to build my landing page based off a mixture of these. And it did exactly that. It puts together a mock-up. And instead of me having to go in and, oh, well, I don't like that, so I've got to change the code here, or I've got to change the code there. No, I just tell it, I say, well, hey, the headline that you created is too big. Can you make it a little smaller? Oh, and by the way, can you pull in the YouTube thumbnails for all of my podcast episodes onto this landing page, et cetera, et cetera. And I can just tell it what I want it to do, like I'm talking to an employee, and it goes and does it without having any coding expertise or without needing to write a single line of code. And the last point of basic competency on level 3 is when you can iterate with the AI when it doesn't work perfectly. So kind of like in level 1, where instead of just giving up, we learn how to troubleshoot and learn how to redirect the chatbot to get it to do what we want it to do. It's the same concept in level 3. So instead of just giving up when the output isn't what you want it to be, or when the tool doesn't work like you want it to, being able to conversationally talk to the AI and help it iterate and help it get it right when it doesn't do it perfectly the first time. Now, you know you've started to master level 3 when you built at least 2 or 3 functional tools for your business. You understand it enough to guide the AI when it gets stuck, and you're not afraid to experiment. So in my opinion, that's just one of the coolest features of level 3, is being able to experiment, and that you're just truly only limited by your imagination, especially when it comes to level 3. So one day I woke up and I'm like, hey, I want to create a landing page for my podcast, and I want it to pull in my podcast episodes automatically so people can watch the episodes right there on the landing page. Oh, and by the way, I want it to automatically update the landing page every time I post a new episode so that I don't have to go in there and import it manually. Again, these are all just ideas that I'm experimenting with. And turns out you can do all of those things easily with natural language without learning how to code. So that experimentation function, I think, is a key part of level 3, just going out there and breaking stuff, quote unquote, learning what works and learning how to fix it. Now, the reality check when it comes to level 3 is that most entrepreneurs, most small business owners are never going to reach this level. Because like I said earlier, you've got to master level 1 and you've got to master level 2 before you can really do any damage at level 3. So I consider myself to be early level 3. I wouldn't even say I've mastered level 3 yet. I built a couple of simple tools via vibe coding, but I'm not a level 3 master yet. But again, I only spend 15 minutes a day for the last few months learning this stuff. So if I can learn this stuff 15 minutes a day in say 90 days, then anybody can do the same. And if you're at level 3, even early level 3, you're ahead of 95% of people, really 99% of people. And that's a huge competitive advantage that if you just keep sharpening those skills, you're going to continue to widen the gap between you and all of your competitors. All right, so how do you know when you're ready to level up to level 4? You built, say, 3 to 5 custom tools, and these aren't even tools that you're going out and selling to the marketplace. These are just tools that you're building just to prove to yourself that you can build them. Maybe you use them internally in your business, maybe you don't. Maybe you just built them for fun. But you've gotten to the point where you built a few custom tools, you know how to deploy them, and you know how to get results from these vibe coding platforms. Now, you also know when you're ready to level up, when you start to notice some repetitive patterns where you're just like, man, I wish I had an agent that could just run that pattern for me, or they could run that very specific task on a consistent basis for me. So that's going to be the basis for level 4, which is learning how to create and deploy autonomous agents that specialize in individual tasks. And those agents go and perform those tasks for you on a routine, regular basis. So some of the tools that you can use to get to level 4, to build these agents, build your army of agents, are tools like Lindy.ai, tools like String.com, and even sub-agents within Claude Code. So I think that's what everybody is assuming that AI is going to get to, is that we just have this swarm of agents who are basically our little mini individual employees. Each agent specializes in a specific task. They're really good at doing one thing. And once we train them on that one thing, we let them go to work and we let them do their thing and we let them just go out and produce. Because there's no downtime. The cost to running them, the cost to letting them go to work is so low. That's really what the future of work looks like. Now, mastery at level 4, in my opinion, looks like you're to the point where you have a fleet of specialized AI employees. So Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, made a claim, I think it was earlier this year, that sparked a lot of debate, but I totally agree with it. He said the billion-dollar companies of the future are going to be solopreneur companies. They're going to be run by a single human who, instead of having a team of 20, 30, 50, 100 employees, they've got a team of 20, 30, 50, 100 very specialized AI agents. So that's when you know you're starting to master level 4, is when you have this fleet of agents doing work for you, right? Each agent's going to have individual guardrails and very specific tasks that it's responsible for. So this is actually where people slip up in level 4, is they have agents try to do too many things at once. So a good agent, like I said earlier, is going to specialize in one single task. It's going to master one single task. So for example, a great agent might be an expert copywriter. All that agent does is write sales copy. It doesn't do anything else but write sales copy. Where people go wrong is when they try to build an agent that writes sales copy and also designs landing pages. It's very difficult for an agent to be good at more than one thing. So what would make more sense in that scenario is one agent that specializes in sales copy and a second agent that specializes in landing page design. So keeping those agents siloed and keeping those agents specialized, that's when you know you're starting to master level 4. Another part of level 4 mastery is when you're to the point where you don't need to necessarily, there's not a whole lot of human oversight required for these agents. You build them once, you train them. Of course, you keep an eye on them and you make sure they're not going off the rails. But in general, 95% of the time, they are just doing work on their own and they're delivering outcomes. And the only time you need to step in is when you need to alter their scope of work or when you need to add new agents to the equation. Now, one thing I will say is that at level 4 and even at level 3, it does help. It certainly helps to have a basic understanding of how developing works and how code works, but it's not required, right? But I will say, of course, it makes sense that people that know how to code and people that have that skill set are going to be at an advantage over those of us that don't have that skill set, myself included. All right. So when it comes to level 4, less than 1% of people are at level 4. I would go as far to say that 0.1% of people are at level 4, maybe even less. And it's going to take years, not just 1 or 2 years, but probably 5 to 7 years before level 4 competency is mainstream. Not just when it comes to individual consumers, but when it comes to companies. I mean, you think of all the big Fortune 500 companies that are so slow to implement this stuff, so slow to adopt AI. It's going to take a very long time before these big companies are operating at level 4 of AI mastery. So that's where us, as entrepreneurs, as small business owners, we have a huge competitive advantage because we can get on top of this stuff and become masters well before these much larger, entrenched, monolithic competitors do so. And the beautiful part of level 4 is you don't need to get to level 4 to win. Like I said earlier, if you can just get to like a low level 3, an early level 3, you're going to be so far ahead of your competition, it's not even going to be funny. You're going to be able to do stuff that's going to take them weeks and thousands of dollars to do if they do it the traditional way. So lastly, let's jump into the 90-day roadmap. How do we jump from level 1 to level 3? Or if we're brand new, how do we jump from literally level 0 to level 3 in 90 days or less? And the beauty of this whole system is that it takes 15 to 20 minutes per day, no more than that, 15 to 20 minutes per day of tinkering to go from level 1 to early level 3 in 3 months or less. So your action plan, if you're listening to this and you want to get to level 3 or even level 4, month 1, so for the first 30 days, just master prompting. Master prompting by practicing prompting the AI every day and start to build out your prompt template library. You can build this out in a Google Doc. You can build it in a Google Sheet. I personally love Notion. And inside my Notion, I have a prompt library folder of all the prompts that I use on a regular basis. And these prompts range from anything. One of the prompts that I have is, well, if I can take a picture of my refrigerator of everything that I have in my fridge, this prompt will build me a meal plan based on what I have in my fridge. Prompts like that, all the way to very specific, very detailed prompts that I use to turn, say, a podcast transcript like the one that you're listening to here into a newsletter article and into 10 different LinkedIn ideas. So there's so much that you can learn and so much better you can get just by mastering prompting. So in month 1, your task is to master prompting and build a prompt template library for the tasks that you're doing yourself on a regular basis. In month 2, all you're going to do is you're going to focus on automating one task per week using a tool like Make.com or like Zapier. And these can be the most basic tasks in the world. They don't need to save you 20 hours a week every time you automate something. The goal in month 2 is to just build the muscle of automating workflows. I still, to this day, I will go and build stuff in Zapier just to practice building stuff in Zapier, like stuff that I'm not even going to use, right? Just because I want to get more comfortable with Zapier, get more comfortable building these workflow automations, because as a skill, that's an incredibly valuable, incredibly important skill to have. And then lastly, in month 3, to get to the point where you're starting to achieve level 3, you're going to build your first vibe coded tool. And you're going to start with something super simple. Now, my recommendation for how to go about the month 3 task is just use a tool like Lovable, which is a vibe coding tool where, again, using natural language, you can build apps or software tools or landing pages or websites. You can build anything that you can imagine. So start with a tool like Lovable and just build a simple landing page for your personal brand or for your website. That's what I want you to do in month 3. So if you just do those 3 things over the course of 3 months, you will be ahead of 99% of people, and you will have 3 distinct skill sets, 1 being prompt mastery, 2 being workflow automation, 3 being vibe coding. 3 very powerful skill sets that are going to make you and your business worth a ton of money. So if we go back and recap levels 1 through 4, again, level 1 is learning how to prompt. And in order to master level 1, you're going to give the chatbot a role, you're going to define the task, and you're going to specify the output format. Level 2 is workflow automation. That's where you're going to learn how to use tools like Zapier or Make.com to automate routine tasks. You're going to lead with an automation mindset, and you're going to practice automating 1 task at a time. Level 3 is vibe coding. So that's when you're going to use AI coding assistants like Lovable, Replit, Claude Code, or Bolt to build lightweight custom tools. And then lastly, level 4 is autonomous agents. That's when you're starting to build AI employees that specialize in independent tasks that you can deploy to do your work for you. So the takeaway here is you don't need to be an expert. You just need to be 1 step ahead of your customer and or your competition. And you can get 1 step ahead of your customer and or competition with 15 minutes per day of tinkering for 90 days straight. So I'm curious, what level are you guys at right now? Drop a comment and let me know. Like I said earlier, I am a low level 3. But within the next 6 months, I plan to be a level 4 master. So if you enjoyed this episode and if you find value in this content, please like the video if you're watching on YouTube, or give me a rating and or review. If you're watching on Spotify or Apple, thank you so much for your time and attention, and I'll be back next week.